Mindfulness has become increasingly fashionable as a spiritual practice, as a way of coping with stress, being used in the workplace to make workers more effective. And that quality of awareness that comes with mindfulness, that quality of witnessing what's going on in our minds, our thoughts, of bringing ourselves into the moment, of not being distracted by the past or the future, is very helpful to us. But heartfulness adds perhaps a different or deeper dimension to it, in that in bearing witness to what is going on, to being in the moment, is not withdrawing from it. It's not a kind of neutral observation of it. What is conjured up when we engage in heartfulness, when we engage in a loving awareness of what is going on, is the response is not neutral. That we see what is going in ourselves and the world, and there is a feeling response to it, as well as an intellectual, mindful response to it. Heartfulness takes us into that place of seeing the suffering in ourselves and the world, and opening up with sorrow and compassion for it, and more than that, wanting to do something about it, wanting to act and engage in the world in a place of service in some way. And that compassion, that heartfulness, starts with ourselves. And one of the great blockages that many of us have to having compassion for ourselves are all those signals we've received, both intrinsically from our memories, from our story, from extrinsically from people out into the world, to what society tells us, from parenting, that actually tells us we're not good, we're not compassionate, we're not even worthy of compassion, that it's not safe to be in the world, that I'm not good, that I've no power, and so on and so on. Incredibly negative. And through that, one thing we have to confront with our self-compassion is that part of ourselves, the inner critic, that is constantly having a go at us, telling us we're not good, we're not worthy, we're not safe, who are you to do this, and so on and so forth. Or it twists it and it inflates it in a false sense of how wonderful, how powerful, how marvellous you are, both of which dimensions come from the same inner critical source, that ego-driven dimension that wants to control us and keep us in our place and diminish us at some level. And that inner critic is part of our consciousness. It's never going to go away. It's had many years of being fed, and we need to learn to be able to respond to it and recognize that it's a liar. Its purpose, essential nature is a lie. So one thing that we cultivate with our heartfulness is whatever thoughts are arising like, or whatever feelings like, thoughts and feelings aren't necessarily facts. And we cultivate when we're getting a strong feeling, for example, of worthlessness or unlovableness, is having a question almost mantra-like in our minds is this true? Is this true? I'm no good, I'm useless, da-da-da. Is this true? I've got this terrible story from the past, that's who I am. Is this true? Because the past is dead, it doesn't exist. The future doesn't yet exist, except as memories, as thoughts. And thoughts and memories and feelings aren't necessarily facts. They're not necessarily true of who we are in this moment. That takes us into that deeper question of who I am. If I'm not this thought, if I'm not this series of things, what is left? And that is a very serious and almost fierce question to be asked, because if I'm not all these things that I think I am, that the world has told me I am, what is left? That is the spiritual quest. And for many people that's instantly frightening, and the inner critical becoming into, oh, you shouldn't go there, this isn't for you. Of course you know who you are, this is who you are. And the fear can come in. If I'm not all these things, what's left? You enter the abyss, the vacuum, the place of, well, of course I'm these things. Of course I'm a father, a mother, a nurse, a doctor, a filmmaker, whatever it might be. Of course I'm this abused child, da, 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 da. Of course I'm a cancer patient, or as we peel peel away those labels we give ourselves, we realize that's what they are, labels. They're not who I am. But for a moment, there can be a stay away from this thing, because if you, yes, that's who you are, I've got you under control, I've got you boxed and coxed, and the space when I think that's not who I am can be scary. But as we pass through that, as we work through that, using the approaches of the support of the soul friend, soul foods, the soul work, the soul community, and so on, we come to realize that not being attached to an identity of anything, not being stuck to it, not being stuck to our story or a label, they're all things we dance in, they are things we inhabit, they are things that enable us to function in the world, but they're not who we are. And by not being attached to them, we move through the scariness of not being attached to the identity into the liberation, the joy of, I can be whatever I want to be. I'm not stuck by these things. I am free of them. The truth that sets you free. This is not who I am. Now, dealing with the inner critic is quite a challenge. We learn to say no. What doesn't work is saying to it, I'm pretending you're not there. What doesn't work is saying, I'm going to destroy you. What doesn't work is saying, I'm going to do what you want me to do. Because all those just feed the beast. They give it the energy it wants. Instead, we acknowledge its existence. And perhaps even we extend compassion to it by just allowing it to be. Feed the beast, give it what it, does it want chocolate? Give it some chocolate. But leave it, go get thee behind me, leave me alone, allow me to get on with doing what I am doing. To be more fully, to be free of you. You're part of me, I accept you, but you're my story, you're not true, you don't govern me anymore. And one of the ways of exposing its lies is using heartfulness approaches to first discover that compassion for ourselves. So that if we take this beautiful flower, and let's say this lovely flower is your heart, your soul, your most precious self, your delicate self, the little child within, the light within, and you're constantly saying to it, you're rubbish, you're no good, you're never going to get anywhere, you've been bad, you're awful, blah, 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 whatever it is, whatever signals we've been given, this precious self isn't going to flourish. It's not going to blossom, it's not going to be fruitful, it's going to feel repressed, controlled, it will wither, it will die. But when we look at that flower and we see how it's being punished by this, suffering at the hands of this lie, the heartfulness approach, when we touch it, just allows us to say, often the first response is, oh, you poor thing, I feel sorry for you. And sorrow for something is one of the gateways to compassion. It's when the heart begins to open and we start to say to ourselves, ah, you poor thing. Ah, wait a minute. No, you don't. You back off. Come on, let me look after you. Let me take care of you. Let me tell you how precious you are. Let me feed you with things that will nourish you and make you be fruitful and happy and joyful in the world. And at that point, the heartfulness processes we begin to recognize that compassion for ourselves, the awakening of our own heart, then feeds us naturally into an awakening of compassion for others as well, who are also stuck in that place. So that when we see people, situations in the world of suffering and nastiness, our response is not one of, oh, how terrible you are, how awful you are, I want to escape you or tell you you're rubbish or you're bad or I judge you, but to see actually behind that suffering is that same driven voice that's telling people how bad they are. And maybe we can then find compassion for them too. This is a kind of compassion as we discover it. It's not just about what you want. It's not just a feel-good stuff. It's a compassion that says, as a result of becoming more okay in myself, I am now able to express and serve with that okayness in the world, to make the world, others around me, in whatever my little space is, a better place. Heartfulness is not just a self-congratulatory, feel-good factor, process, piece of work. Heartfulness is coming to know ever deeper compassion for the self and for the world, and to fulfill an expression of that in the world.